none, we've got a nice agenda tonight, and we'll start with Libby.
Awesome, thank you so much. So my East counterpart is not here tonight, but I have some updates for West Athletics and some extracurriculars going on in both the high schools. So West Wrestling had conference this past Friday and did well, with senior Blake Pudwell taking second, seniors Josh Johnson, Matt Young, and Jason DeCesar taking third, and many other place winners. They'll be competing at Oshkosh North this Saturday for regionals. Girls basketball has a busy week, playing Cedarburg Tuesday, Whitefish Bay Thursday to determine conference standings, and Hartford Friday. And boys basketball plays at Cedarburg Tuesday, at Whitefish Bay Thursday, and versus Hartford on Friday. All basketball games are at 7:15. The swim team had their conference meet this past weekend, placing third as a whole, with Jackson Rod taking first in the 100 freestyle and Kevin Fitzgerald taking first in the 100 back and 500 freestyle, as well as many winning relays. The dance team competed at the state competition in their Division I jazz routine, with seniors Leah Justman and Lindsay Keller competing as all-state finalists in their solos. Over 700 students competed at the FBLA Region 6 competition this past Saturday at Waupun High School. Students also participated in workshops and networked with other students and professionals. West Bend Future Business Leaders of America had 34 of 37 compete. 31 of those members were place winners, with 21 placing in the top 3 of their category and qualifying for state. This huge number of state qualifiers resulted in a 3rd place overall out of 26 chapters. So that was a really big accomplishment for them. Practices are underway for the winter musical Happy Days. Performances are Friday, February 22nd at 7 p.m., Saturday, February 23rd at 1 and 7 p.m. And the forensics teams both did really well this weekend, with East taking 5th in the medium division and West taking 4th in the large division. So thank you very much for having me again.
Great, thank you, Libby. Anybody wish to participate in public participation tonight? Seeing nobody, we will move on to our action items. First is our consent agenda, and on the consent agenda we have minutes of the January 28th regular board meeting and disbursements posted to February 4th, 2019.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any questions on the consent agenda? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No, motion passes. Next, we will do our financial audit, and I think Dave Minch is here to present that to us. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you. Does anybody know if this presentation is loaded on the computer? Okay. Yeah. Yep.
We've got a 21 slide presentation and an 80 slide presentation in our board docs.
Oh, you guys probably have the actual financial statements and the management letter. Sure.
Oh, we were hoping you were going to read all 80 pages.
Yeah.
Be here a little longer than 7 o'clock. Okay. Well, if nothing else, I'll just grab. Oh, this is going to be the actual documents. Thought they were sent this. Okay. Well, I apologize for that. Brian and I put together a presentation that's just a summary of the financial statements and the management letter, and I'll just go through those and refer to the documents themselves. So, again, thank you for having me. I'm Dave Minch. I'm the audit manager who oversees fieldwork for the school district's financial statement audit. Just wanted to hit on some summary of the significant audit results. In the larger document, that is the financial statements themselves, there's an auditor's opinion in there. Essentially, that's why you have an audit done, or the district has an audit done, is to receive an opinion on the financial statements. We issued an unmodified opinion, or in other words, a clean opinion. That's the highest level of assurance we can provide on a set of financial statements. So good news there. We do issue an independent auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting. There were 5 findings associated with that this year. One being the preparation of the annual financial report. 2, adjustments to the district's financial records. 3 was general ledger reconciliations. The 4th one was segregation of duties, and the 5th one was the financial reporting of federal and state awards. A lot of these findings, 3 of them are repeat findings, just because you contract with your auditors to prepare your financial statements, and then also the state and federal schedule of awards, and then the 3rd one is the segregation of duties. Most districts in the state of Wisconsin receive this finding just because they don't have enough people to properly segregate all of the duties within the financial statement and record-keeping duties. The other 2 findings this year, the adjustments to the financial statement records and the general ledger reconciliations, is largely due to the fact that there was some turnover, some people weren't in position throughout the year, so things just weren't done timely. But as far as we're concerned, that is, being addressed and shouldn't be an issue going forward. The other finding that we had was related to the federal and state assistance, and that was just a finding that we noted with the general transportation aid, and based on the response, that finding should already be addressed. The smaller document that's there is the management communication letter. This, just on a recap, just kind of recaps what was stated in our engagement letter, and in the financial statements just talks about what we did, and our responsibility as auditors is to express an opinion on your financial statements. It talks about accounting estimates, any difficulties if we would have had them while performing the audit. It states in there that all audit adjustments were corrected by management. There was no disagreements with management. There was no consultations with other accountants, and no other audit findings to note. Now we'll just kind of recap some financial highlights throughout the year. Starting with the general fund. The general fund, and I can, if you have the financial statements open, the general fund information will be on page 14 and 16. But the general fund, which is your main operating fund, at the end of the year had a net fund balance of almost $2 million. This included $8.2 million of unassigned fund balance, which is essentially your operating fund balance, which is an increase of almost $800,000 from the prior year. So your general fund had a very strong year this year. In here, we've got a couple comparisons on fund balance, just trends over the last 5 years. As you can see, you're trending upward in your general fund over the last 3 years. So general fund is operating very effectively. Just wanted to talk about your fund balance as a percentage of actual expenditures. The board policy is 14 to 18% unassigned fund balance to general fund expenditures. At the end of 18, you're at 11.2%. A little below that, but from an auditor standpoint, you guys are very strong. You have a lot of a very significant committed fund balance. Things that you might want to take a look at this next year. Nothing alarming, but just to reevaluate the committed fund balance. In here, we just talk about the rest of the governmental funds fund balance. Again, just nothing really to point out. It was a pretty consistent year this year. A couple other pieces of information here. At the end of June 30th, 2018, there was $35.4 million in outstanding debt. The district made $4.4 million in principal payments during the past fiscal year. And just kind of to give you a picture, in the next 5 years, $16.8 million of that principal will be repaid. So over the next 5 years, as you guys have budgeted and in the tax levy, half of your debt will be repaid, assuming there isn't any additional borrowings. The other thing just to point out is the other post-employment benefits. This is your Fund 73. The actuarially accrued liability for that was $11.9 million. The fiduciary net position is approximately $2.9 million, so there's a net liability of $9.1 million out there. From our standpoint of a district this size, that's a relatively small liability. So nothing really to note in regards to that, and any recommendations for that, so. Does anybody have any questions on the financial statements for the management letter? I apologize that this presentation didn't get loaded, but if anybody has any questions, you can always reach out to Brian Grunwald or myself after tonight. So.
I think you discussed this earlier, but with regard to the control deficiencies, are there any that you find that are unique to the district? You talked about ones that are common, like segregation of duties, which I'm guessing can be overcome through some sort of compensating controls. But are there any that are unique to the district, to this particular district alone?
Yeah, this year, the adjustments to the district's financial statement records and the general ledger reconciliations, those are unique to this district. I mean, largely due to the fact that there was vacancies throughout the year, and then there was some turnover too that the district dealt with. So things weren't materially misstated; they just weren't being done timely. Just throwing out like a bank reconciliation as an example, that should be done timely. Within a month or two after the month is done. That just due to the staffing levels and transition wasn't being done timely. So when that's not being done timely, things aren't corrected and detected timely, so that in turn led to more financial statement adjustments that we found throughout the audit. So again, nothing related to fraud, theft, anything like that. It's just things weren't being done timely, and when accounts aren't reconciled, things just slip through the cracks. So. Any additional questions?
Seeing none, we do need to accept this audit. So I will move to accept the 17-18 financial audit prepared by the district's audit firm, Scheck SC.
Second.
Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that motion passes. Thank you for being here tonight. Appreciate it. Last week, Dave Ross talked to us about capital projects, and I think tonight's the night to approve those capital projects. So
That would be great.
that would be great.
That's correct. And like I said last week, there's a couple of items on this year's capital project list that are a little unique. One being the replacement of the loader, which is a fairly large ticket item. Again, this is a used piece of equipment that we would try to procure rather than a new piece, because we just don't have the wear and tear, that would be required for a new piece, or the hours that we would put on it. But we do need a decent piece of equipment. It's integral for our snow removal operations. And then the other item that I'd like to point out is the carpet replacement in the libraries at the high schools for $105,000. That will only go forward if the referendum does not pass in April. And at that point, I will come back to you in April with an amended budget and some amended projects that we'd like to do. Does anyone have any questions?
Dave, with regard to the repairs that are on the list, is there anything here that we're replacing sooner than expected? Or for the most part, these items like roof repair, soffit replacement, is that something where we've drawn all the useful life out of it we possibly can?
We probably draw all the useful life out of everything and then try to squeeze a little bit more out. It's just the nature of the beast. It's just the environment that we're in, and it's not like at a private business or a Class A office building. So, yeah, we get a lot more wear and tear out of our equipment than most people do.
I move to approve the 2019-2020 capital projects list and the budget of $1,480,255. Is that right? 255, yes.
Great. Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Now we'll be talking about a proposed new middle school course, which is the Music for All course, correct?
Correct.
All right.
Last week, we did a presentation on that. Darcy Ketter was here and talked with much more detail than is in your documents about the course. And so at this time, I would ask that if the board has any more questions about it, to ask those, and I'll be happy to address it before you potentially take a motion and vote.
I move to approve the addition of the middle school course Music for All beginning in the 2019-2020 school year.
Second.
Great, motion and a second. Any questions, discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that motion passes. Thank you. And this will be our third reading of revised board policy 181.5, which is the virtual attendance at board meetings. We did not vote on this last week because we didn't have everybody here, but I'll entertain any discussion or questions on this one. Otherwise, I move to approve revised board policy 181.5, virtual attendance at board meetings.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that motion passes. Tonight will also serve as our second reading of new board policy 224, which is the board superintendent relations. Don spoke a little bit about this one last week. We don't have everyone here to vote on it during a second reading, but we can certainly discuss it if there's any questions anybody has or changes. Pretty simple policy there that we got a lot of help on from WASB and the policy resource guide. So we'll bring that one back at our next board meeting for third reading. We had a policy meeting upstairs at 5:45. I'll turn it over to Chris to give us a recap of that.
All right, we did have our meeting today at 5:45, 3 items on the agenda. The first was revised board policy 432, school attendance area, intra-district transfer. That'll be brought forward for a first reading at our next board meeting. Second item was new board policy 336, non-district research involving district schools or programs, and the committee tabled that for further discussion at the next policy committee meeting. Third item, board policy 172, special board meetings, status update on draft bill. We received an update that the state legislature is considering some clarifications to that, to the statutes that govern that particular policy, and so the policy committee will be monitoring that. And that concludes my update.
Great, thank you, Chris. We're at the superintendent's report. Laura, do you know what?
Yep, I have a list of items that Don wanted to share.
Great.
The first of which is about the referendum presentations, and Dave Ross is going to come up and share on behalf of Don Kierkegaard for that portion of the superintendent's report.
Okay, so I guess it's a field promotion, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, as you may have heard, the school district is going out for referendum on April 2nd. How we got to this point, several years ago, the district developed a 25-year capital improvement plan, and a new Jackson and high school improvements were identified in that plan right around this timeline. We went through several discussions and finally, after lots of hand-wringing and information and going through the process, the board decided that we were going to go to referendum in April of this year. During the course of in preparing for this, the district actually did a community-wide survey. And what the survey revealed was that 53% of all taxpayers in the community supported a new Jackson Elementary. 83% supported safety and security improvements at the high school. And 76% of taxpayers were in favor of improving the technical education and the STEM areas at the high school as well. And then finally, there was a recognized need for improvement in the infrastructure at the high school. This is what the question will appear as on the ballot in April. The referendum total dollar amount will be $47 million. At Jackson Elementary, a lot of study was done to identify needs at the facility. The school entrances, the main entrance to the building by the office, there's stairs in front of it. It's really not ADA accessible. Ventilation is vintage 1960s, 1950s, and there are major building components that really are due for replacement, as I said before. Where most places would get 30 years out of something, we get 40, and then a little bit more sometimes. Key findings from the report include that the classroom floors, lightings and ceilings and cabinetry are in need of replacement. When you have the opportunity to walk through Jackson, it is a little on the tired side. The building exterior needs replacement for energy efficiency. There are some panels on that building that are basically an inch of fiberglass with almost a curtain wall design with some of it. No on-site parking. The school has been expanded several times, and there are multiple levels throughout the building. As you can see, this is an evolution diagram of Jackson Elementary. So the earliest portion of the building, we have it labeled as 1915. Some say that it's older than that, but I did find in a portion of the basement scratched into the concrete, somebody wrote the year 1915 in it. So if it's older than that, it's still over 100 years old. So there are many additions put on. And again, I think the key point with this is that with those additions, there are elevation changes through very many of them. So, for example, there's a set of stairs between the 68 and 63 edition. There's stairs between the 55 and 1915 edition. There's a ramp between the 96 and 2001 editions. So there are ramps and stairs all over this building. At the high schools, again, safety and security was the highest recognized need at the high school. And that will be addressed by moving the main office area up to the front of the building between the two stair towers that are there now. CTE and the STEM programs will be remodeled. We have some issues with the major building components, including electrical, mechanical, and plumbing systems. And the libraries and classrooms are outdated and really not conducive to a 21st century program. Again, you can kind of see the evolution of the high school. The main brown part was the original 1970 building. And then in 1995, the light green additions were put on. The pool was put on in 1977. And then there was the music addition in 2000. And then the lobby and the gallery space was put on for the auditorium, as well as a PE classroom addition. The solution for Jackson is to construct a new 82,000 square foot elementary building on a site that the district already owns. That site would have enhanced safety features, we would have parking on site, it would be ADA compliant, and again would be lower energy cost per square foot than the existing Jackson Elementary. This is a conceptual site plan for the new space. Again, we have not gone to the expense of developing floor plans or developing elevations. Again, it's premature until a referendum actually passes. But as you can see, there is plenty of room on this site to construct either a one or a two-story building. At the high school, as I mentioned before, the main entrances will be relocated. We'll be adding new doors and security features at many of the other entrances. One of the things that we struggle with a lot at the high school is after-hours events, because we're unable to segregate certain parts of that building, so we have people able to get into many different parts where they probably shouldn't be. We'll be adding some security cameras, and the smoke alarm systems will be improved. Right now we have 3 different panels in there that kind of are tied together. It's less than an ideal situation, as well as new controlled entries. The CTE areas and the STEM areas and art areas will be improved as well. The infrastructure at the high school will be updated. mechanical equipment. All the windows in that building are all single glazed windows, and really there's not a good reason to replace windows unless they are having leakage problems, and we are suffering a lot of leakage problems there. The payback on that is, for an energy system, is really not there, but again, these windows are in poor condition, and it's not a question of upgrading for energy's sake. And then the libraries will be enhanced and improved to provide better opportunities for students, both in the library and then for a student center that will be located upstairs, as well as some of the additional classrooms that are being moved from the front of the building. As you can see from the drawing, the area that's labeled number 1 is will be the new office center. The areas labeled with a 2 are the CTE areas. The dotted lines indicate new upgrades with LED lighting for the facility. Upstairs, as you can see, one of the spaces, the one on the left, will be the library, and then you can see the additional classrooms that are added in the library space upstairs. For an investment, this is really the mill rate history of the district. The green line represents the state average, which in 1819 was $9.44. West Bend is $7.97. And again, with a comparison to our neighbors, West Bend now is at $7.97. The state average is $9.44. And you can see just by looking at the graph where our neighbors fall within that. Historically, interest rates have been coming down over the last several years. Right now, you can see the interest rates are probably in the 2.75% range. This is again, it's not a forecast. It's how the interest rates have gone over the year. Right now, we're really not expecting to see much difference going forward, but again, the sooner we can get this locked in, the better off we'll be. So the total investment is not to exceed $47 million on the referendum. We expect the new elementary building to cost $24.4 million, and the improvements at the high school at $25.5 million. That totals the total project amount will be, as I said, well, I didn't say 49. It'll be $49.9 million, but $2.9 million of that will come from the Jackson Fund investment that the district has put away over the years to help cut the cost of this project. The interest rate, the total principal and interest cost for the project will be approximately $74 million. The interest cost will be about $27 million. The cost per $100,000 of property value will be $13.
Dave?
Yes.
That estimate for the interest cost, that is currently based on a 4.2% interest?
4.25.
4.25%
We
interest
expect to
rate.
do considerably better than that, but again, just trying to be conservative going forward. And then after if and when the referendum passes, I'm going to say after, our mill rate will go up to $8.10 per thousand. And you can see, again, it jumps slightly. You'll notice that Fond du Lac has a referendum that passed. I'm not sure how much their referendum was for, but it certainly affects their mill rate considerably more than our referendum.
They're looking to pass one on April 2nd as well.
Okay.
And that their thick black line represents their adjustment. There is a thin black line at the top of West Bend's that represents what our adjustment would be.
And then finally, the model that we've chosen for delivery of the project is a construction manager at risk. That allows for a couple of different things, but one of the really important things for West Bend is that it will allow opportunities for local contractors to bid on specialized bid packages. For example, we have a number of landscapers in town who can bid on the landscaping. We have electrical firms. We have drywall firms. They will be able to submit a bid specifically to their trade, to their specialized trade. Generally, what happens with a general contractor, the general contractor will self-perform all the work that they can perform, and then they have a list of contractors they generally use. And again, they're putting in a firm bid on a project. So that's one of the differences that you might see. And again, the intent is to use as much local labor as we possibly can. And so, to that end, what we'll be doing is notifying local contractors, having open houses, and again, trying to solicit as much local interest as we possibly can. So, does anyone have any questions? We'll be doing some informational presentations and tours at the high school and at Jackson. And again, if you have any questions or people need information, this is where to call.
And Dave, I understand, so this PowerPoint you just showed is going to be shown at many of these sessions, and
Yes, and it will get better and better.
and it's meant to be interactive with many groups. I just saw Nancy's latest post today from Kiwanis clubs to little township meetings to the meeting we're having today that Don's at. So there seems to, it looks like a very informational, interactive presentation that hopefully will get a lot of questions from the community.
Nancy's
on.
got her calendars filled up.
Yes.
And if there's someone who has not yet scheduled a meeting that would like to have a presentation before their group, they can call the number that's listed on the screen, which is 262-335-5459.
Great. Any more questions? This is obviously on Board Docs, so I suppose if individual board members want to download it, just get it right off of Board Docs. So, very good. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
So there are a couple of other items in the superintendent's report that I wanted to share on behalf of Don. One of those is just a brief pathways update. So since the vote last week, the families of students who attend Pathways received a letter from the Pathways staff letting them know about the vote that occurred last Monday to notify Pathways of intent not to renew the contract. They also had discussion with the students within classes. The district sent a letter to families to let them know about the process for the individual meetings and that we would be contacting them this week. So this week, a letter will be sent to the families with an invitation to schedule those meetings. We've also met with the Pathways staff. Dave Hamelman stepped in on Tuesday. We had a meeting with the Pathways staff tonight, and we are continuing to move forward with the next steps. We've had, in the last week, we've had 3 snow days. Most recently, we've had a total of 4 snow days so far in our district. And the question has come, how many of those do we need to make up? And right now, with the state of Wisconsin, looking at the hours of instruction students receive, right now we are okay. Moving forward, if there are future snow days, we may not be. We may be making up some student time. Right now, the students do not need to make up any of those missed days.
You got a smile and a fist pump from a couple students over here, so.
So right now, your end of the year date has stayed the same. The only other thing that I would ask is that if any board members have questions for our acceleration meeting next Monday, if you could try to get those specific questions to me by Wednesday, then we'll be prepared to address those specific questions at our work session on the 11th.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Laura? On our board calendar, we do not have a closed session tonight. That has been canceled. Our next meeting is next week on Monday night at 5:30, and that's the committee of the whole. I think we put a time limit on that one, too. We'll be out of here by 7? 6:45. So be at that one if you can next week, Monday night. We'll be down here for that one. And then a couple referendum open houses at West Bend High School and in Jackson on the calendar. And then our next regular board meeting is February 25th. And then another one following on March 4th. Any questions? I'll motion to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thanks.